Autistic people are just so blunt and rude. Also, non-autistic people. Look me in the eyes when you talk to me. Can you stop shaking like that? It's so embarrassing. God, you're so picky. Just eat it. You're so weird. Why do you even like that stuff? So what's the cure? Why are you wearing headphones? Take them off. Can you even be in a relationship? Can they talk and stuff?
Oh look, there's dishes. Not my problem. I'm gonna go relax on the couch. Oh right, the dishes need to be done. You need to do the dishes, they're starting to pile up. But I have so many other tasks to do. Just do it. So many steps involved. If you don't do it now, you'll never do it. Complicated process. I'm so lazy. Little pieces of food. I just can't.
Hey, are you free this weekend?
Always. I mean, yes. Why?
Oh, I was having a little get-together this Saturday, and I was wondering if you wanted to come.
Oh, cool. What time? It's gonna be sometime in the afternoon. Just head over whenever you can. No. What numbers will the clock hands be pointing at when I should be at your front door? 6-ish, I guess.
You guess? Why would you do this to me?
Okay, just be there at 6:30.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Okay, the party is at 6:30, so I should be parked at 6:29 because they live on the second floor. It's a Saturday, so I should expect a 30% increase in traffic, meaning I should leave at 5:55, therefore I need to shower at 4:30, so my hair has time to dry.
What the hell are you doing?
Shut up, I'm calculating.
You know what? I deserve a break. I've been working really hard, and I deserve a me day. So I'm just gonna take a me day, I'm gonna relax. I'm gonna start power washing the ceiling!
Hello dears, welcome to part 1 of some neurodivergent affirmations. It is okay to mourn the life that you thought you were going to live before realizing you were disabled. It is okay to have a hard time with things that you didn't used to have a hard time with. It is okay to feel angry about how hard life is for you. It is okay to be a Debbie Downer. It is okay that sometimes you choose the unhealthy coping mechanism over the healthy one. It is okay that your best feels like too little right now, and there's no right or wrong way to feel about the life that you're currently living.
I want to introduce you to the funniest joke in autistic history. Hey Gabrielle, can you hand me that box? This box? No. Pretty much every autistic person that I have ever met and experienced this with thinks that this is hilarious. Saying no while doing the thing that they were asked. Part of it is a PDA thing for some people, but part of it is also just that we think it is hilarious to say one thing while doing another because our brains are so black and white that is a hilarious joke to us, and neurotypical people are usually like, what is going on? Why do you think this is funny? Pretty much every autistic person, I'm not saying every autistic person ever thinks this is funny, but pretty much every autistic person that I have ever talked to about this, whether that person is a highly intelligent not PDHD. What am I trying to say? Person with a doctorate. Sorry, my dyslexia is kicking in while I'm talking. But anyways, whether this person is very articulate, has multiple degrees, whether this person has very high support needs and is living with their parents and is barely verbal or communicates another way, almost every autistic person seems to think that this is funny. This is autistic humor at its finest.
Hey
Hey, do you have ADHD or autism and you're constantly feeling like you're mentally, emotionally, and physically exhausted, isolating yourself from your friends, family, or partners? You're procrastinating a lot, feeling anxious and depressed a lot, as well as a lot of other symptoms? Well, if that's the case, then you might be in a constant cycle of the freeze response and or a neurodivergent burnout. So what is the freeze response and what is a neurodivergent burnout? The freeze response is when our brain gets so overwhelmed and scared by a real or perceived threat that it pretty much shuts down the brain and the body. A neurodivergent burnout is a chronic state of feeling mentally, emotionally, and physically exhausted due to chronic stress. What are the similarities and the differences between a neurodivergent burnout and the freeze response? Similarities include emotional and physical fatigue, social withdrawal, and cognitive overload. Here are some of the differences. Neurodivergent burnout is usually caused by long-term stress and overstimulation, whereas the freeze response is usually triggered by an immediate, real, or perceived threat. Neurodivergent burnout can be long-lasting and can persist anywhere from a couple of weeks to a couple of months to even longer. The freeze response is usually short-term and can last a couple of minutes to a couple of hours. The negative physical and emotional impact that is caused by a neurodivergent burnout is usually long-lasting, whereas the freeze response is usually pretty immediate and subsides once the threat is gone. So too long didn't read. Basically, the freeze response usually lasts a couple minutes, hours, or even just a day, whereas a neurodivergent burnout is feeling these symptoms for weeks, months, or even longer. However, it is possible to be experiencing a constant cycle of the freeze response while in a neurodivergent burnout, and if you'd like me to talk about that more, just let me know in the comments. And if you'd like me to talk more about how to cope and work through a freeze response and or a neurodivergent burnout, just let me know. Otherwise, my name is Sarah. I'm your favorite self-experimenting coach or companion, and I help get people reacquainted with who they most authentically are. You're an amazing person, and I hope you have the best day.
For everybody who's like, why do I get these shivers out of nowhere? Don't worry, I explain you. Considering you don't have a fever or something else going on, it's perfectly normal and even beneficial for your body to just shake, because we release tension from our muscles that way and we burn adrenaline better that way, and we're just calming our nervous systems. So this isn't just humans. We'll see cats and dogs. If you startle your cat or dog, you'll see them shake their head like this just to release stress and tension. So you're probably like, cool, I get it, I relate to it, but like, why? So when your flight or fight response is triggered, your body is literally pumped with stress hormones. Because think about it, if your brain senses a threat, oh my god, there's a naked mole rat coming after me, I have to get away. So your body has to react quick. Your brain and your body knows that like you're not gonna sit here and make a decision, am I gonna react to this? No, you need something that's way faster than logical thought. So your body knows how to pump you with stress hormones to make you react, to get your body in a position where you can actually fight or flight without having to think. But you don't need to be threatened by like a legitimate thing. It can be anything. In today's world, our fight or flight response is always being triggered. Like your kid's late for school, your phone bill is late, your naked mole rat ran away from home. I don't know why I keep using that, but think about that for a second. So we used to get this fight or flight response and we would release that tension, everything that was built up in us by fighting or flighting. That was the come down. That was the regulating of our nervous system, the fighting and the flighting. But now we're like, oh my god, taxes, but we're like sitting on the couch for hours. So there's no way to actually release that energy. So your body is going to find ways throughout the day to release that energy. You know what I'm saying? But it's cool because everybody has their own little ways that they like to regulate. Like some people, it's singing, dancing. As human beings, we need to be able to release so many of these things and be a little bit weird. But we've suppressed so much of that. So we just hold on to it and our bodies don't want to hold on to it. So like, get weird. Get back in your body. Stop being so scared of yourself.
The average ADHDer receives 20,000 pieces of negative feedback or criticism before they're 10 years old. What happens when that person gets older? Let me ask you a couple of questions. Do you live with a constant sense that you're always doing something wrong? Or perhaps that on some internal level you're broken or a bad adult? That's probably why, in your most fundamental development years, you've had people reflecting back to you that you're getting it wrong, that you're annoying, that you need to try, need to focus, need to change. When we think about the worst symptoms of ADHD, a lot of us will often go to losing things, the shame that comes from not being able to clean our homes, or perhaps struggles with time. The actual worst symptom is the impact it has on our self-esteem and our core identity. We've grown up in an environment that tells us that we're wrong, deficient and broken, and when you live like that in the world, there's no way to be happy. There's no way to access self-love and compassion, things that are fundamental to actually walking around with your shoulders back, feeling like you're a pretty okay human being. Rather than trying to fix yourself, maybe take a little bit of time and reflect on where you can be kinder to yourself, to start to undo some of the negative feedback that you've been living under probably for your whole life.
It's St. Patrick's Day.
We really don't give a fuck. It's not a major holiday.
It's really not, bitch. You act like it's fucking Christmas or something. Fuck you and St. Patrick's.
Now, we also, as I've said, want our adults with ADHD to understand what is attributable to ADHD and what may be due to other disorders. Over 80% of adults with ADHD have a second disorder, and over 55% have a third disorder. So the most common pattern is for adults with ADHD to have 3 disorders. And all of them are going to need to be treated, because treating the ADHD won't get rid of the other 2. By the way, the other 2 that are most common are anxiety and dysthymia, which is a mild form of major depression. The risk for depression is there, but it's really more anxiety disorders. The longer your ADHD went untreated, the greater the likelihood it was going to link up with an anxiety disorder over time. We also want the partners, the spouses, the family members of adults with ADHD to learn about the disorder, to understand its neurobiological underpinning, in order to do, if only one thing, and that is to remove ADHD from the realm of moral judgment. Because that is how most relatives and family members view this undiagnosed patient, as a character flaw, as a personality deficit, and as a moral failing. You could be different if you wanted to be. It's merely a choice that you're making. And we need relatives and partners and spouses to understand this is no choice. This is this disorder. And in doing so, we hope to pull it under the realm of the medical and mental health sciences, and therefore under the realm of compassion and a willingness to assist the adult with ADHD, as opposed to the realm.
I always thought that ADHD is that you can't pay attention.
Same.
That's not what it is at all. And so learning about what it is, and learning that boys and girls present completely differently. So there's an entire generation of women, I don't know if you know this, but there's an entire generation of women called the lost generation. And what happened is, when they were studying ADHD, I guess in the late 60s and early 70s, they only looked at boys. And so boys tend to show the symptoms of ADHD around the age of 7. And it typically is around the hyperactivity or the inability to kind of like focus and control their body movements. Girls, on the other hand, don't start displaying symptoms until about the age of 12. And the symptoms are very different. Girls become inattentive, but in a kind of daydreaming fashion. They become a little bit more disorganized, and they aim all of this back at themselves. And so as you become kind of more inward, and you are inattentive and you're disorganized, and you start to wonder what's wrong with you, and now plus the average age of girls for puberty is right around then too, so all this other stuff is starting to happen and hormones are starting to change. If you don't get properly diagnosed and treated, and by treated I mean the whole array of things that you can do, whether you're talking about medication or just the different habits that you can have or systems that you can develop to support yourself. If you don't get properly tested and you don't address it, do you know what the number one thing that happens? You develop anxiety.
Neurodiversity is a part of our genetics and of our evolution as a species. The genes for autism and ADHD are not errors, but rather are the result of variations in the human genome that have and will continue to have advantages for society. One of the genes associated with ADHD, the DRD4 gene, is known as the novelty-seeking gene. It arrived on the human evolutionary scene over 10,000 years ago. Genes associated with autism also go back more than 10,000 years. Research suggests that genetic variants linked to autism might have been positively selected during human evolution because they contributed to exceptional memory skills, heightened perception in vision, taste, and smell, a precise eye for detail, and an enhanced understanding of systems such as animal behavior. These characteristics likely remain in the gene pool today because they are still advantageous. As a psychologist advising the parents of differently wired kids, I tell parents they have a choice between trying to change the child to fit the environment and changing the environment to fit the child. There are many different microhabitats and subcultures in our world. For an individual with autism or ADHD, finding success on their own terms may come from discovering the particular niche that fits best, the niche that allows their strengths to shine and their challenges to be minimized. Individuals with ADHD tend to thrive in situations of rapid change, variety, and that reward creativity and out-of-the-box thinking.
Here we go. People pleasing is the result of being traumatized for being yourself as a child. People pleasing has nothing to do with you pleasing everybody else. People pleasing has everything to do with trying to feel safe. And as a child, you were shown that it is not safe to be yourself. Therefore, you are a chameleon. And a chameleon changes their personality based on whoever they're around. That is what people pleasing is. It is changing your personality constantly around different people in order to keep yourself safe. So how do we fix that? You start giving yourself permission to act as yourself. Now, this is not an easy task for people pleasers because we actually have no idea who we are, because we've molded ourselves and camouflaged ourselves and become anybody that anyone else wants us to be in order to please them or to remain safe. So who are we? And as my therapist once said, this is the best part of your life because you're given an actual blank slate. Go discover who you are. If you don't know what you like, try everything. Try all different types of foods and figure out what you like. Try all different types of sports and figure out what you like. Try all different types of hobbies and see what you like. This is your chance to actually allow yourself to learn about who you truly are. The second phase to no longer being a people pleaser is standing up for your own wants and needs. This is the hardest part because we tend to feel very guilty when we have a different opinion or a different like to somebody else, because we've gone so long without seeing ourselves as our own individual and more of an extension of everybody else. That's why standing in our own space makes us feel very guilty. It's a traumatic response because we've been taught that being our authentic selves is not safe. Therefore, we need to reprogram ourselves to finally get that feeling that we are safe being our authentic self. It's a long, hard road, and it's a lot of asking ourselves questions like, is this really something that I like to do? Is this really something that I want to do? A lot of doubt, a lot of second guessing because we've been constantly told who we are and who we need to be. So keep pushing forward, keep allowing yourself to be your true authentic self. Try your best to ignore everybody else's opinion because everyone's going to have an opinion about you and about what you should do. And people are going to get mad because they've gone years seeing you live your life based on how they want you to live your life. So changing that is going to be a huge shock to them. But you know what? Be prepared to be shocked because this is the new you coming through.
One of my main special interests is the link between neurodiversity and chronic illness because listen, a lot of us will be chronically ill. We have high pain tolerances, so often won't know until later in life when it really starts to affect us. So I'm going to just dive right into it and name a lot of them. So obviously you have autism and ADHD, and those often come as a pair, and then you'll probably see a bit of like dyslexia, dyspraxia linked into that. And now what do they cause? Okay, so ADHD is very common to cause trichotillomania, dermatillomania because of the dopamine release it gives. It's a type of OCD. A lot of people with ADHD autism have PCOS or endometriosis. This is linked to the RCCX cluster. Look it up, please look it up. So yeah, we've got reproductive issues, we've got PCOS, endometriosis, PMDD is very highly linked to autism and ADHD. If you feel absolutely shit and horrible about yourself a week before your period, this could be you. We've got the hypermobility, which links to this gene yet again. We've got HEDS, hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and HSD, hypermobile spectrum disorder. There's some research that has recently come out that can kind of say that they're basically the same thing, but hypermobile, if you can do this, if you can do other things, get that checked out because it can impact you later in life. And what's a comorbidity of HEDS? POTS. If you stand up and feel dizzy, if you get heart palpitations, if you have fainting episodes, look into POTS. It could very much be that. We've also got the gastrointestinal issues going on. IBS is very, very common in neurodivergent people. This can also link back to POTS and back to hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Okay, let's talk back to the mental illness. A lot of autistic people have eating disorders or disordered eating. really high stats with anorexia, really high stats with ARFID, bulimia. A big one is chronic fatigue. A lot of autistic people struggle with chronic fatigue but won't know it's chronic fatigue. There's other things linked to the gene cluster, including type 1 diabetes, including mast cell activation syndrome, weird histamine responses, asthma, eczema. I'm sure there's a bunch more. If you have any questions or want me to find some sources, I can try my best. Do with this information what you will. Maybe it can help you find a little bit more about yourself if you're neurodivergent. Yeah.
Proprioception versus interoception. What's the difference? Proprioception is your body's ability to sense movement, action, and location, while interoception is your ability to sense internal signals from your body. Proprioception helps us maneuver ourselves in the outside world, while interoception helps us maneuver our own body and mind. In proprioception, receptors in the muscles, joints, tendons, and skin signal the body's location in space and how to move, while in interoception, internal sensors provide us with the notion of what our internal organs are feeling. Poor proprioception looks like poor balance and clumsiness, bad spatial awareness, using too little or too much force, missing objects when you reach for them, and difficulty with coordinated activities. Poor interoception looks like not knowing when you're hungry or thirsty, when you need to use the restroom, when you're hot or cold, what's making you uncomfortable, and having difficulty identifying emotions. Both proprioception and interoception are lesser-known senses, the 6th and 8th, that regulate vital functions in all of us. Issues with both senses have an increased connection to sensory processing challenges in autistic folks, making it harder for us to self-regulate and increasing meltdowns.
I recently discovered the concept of a dopamine menu, which is basically your go-to list of things you can do to feel good throughout your day so you don't default to doom scrolling on social media. We're getting specific about my dopamine menu and how to build your own in episode 157.
Autistic meltdowns versus shutdowns. Meltdowns are external fight responses, while shutdowns are internal freeze responses. Meltdowns can look like physical movements, crying, screaming, hitting, stimming, while shutdowns can look like silence, dissociating, extreme fatigue, difficulty communicating or moving, etc. Meltdowns can be improved by removing them from the situation and self-soothing behaviors, while shutdowns can be improved by allowing generous space and time to recover. Meltdowns are easy to spot and are painful to the person, while shutdowns are harder to spot but just as painful to the person. Meltdowns and shutdowns are both caused by accumulation of sensory input or stress, like sudden changes, social situations, physical or mental exhaustion, masking, etc. Meltdowns and shutdowns are involuntary and not tantrums, which are used deliberately for a desired outcome. Meltdowns and shutdowns can be reduced by removing triggers and having more supports, but that isn't always feasible for most folks. Meltdowns and shutdowns can both occur for autistic folks and even directly after each other.